the really ominous early days of COVID. But the reason I joined was actually because of the COVID disruption, right? So I think one thing that became really apparent was how important e-commerce channels are, even for a 100-year-old auto parts company, right? So we really had to shift and prioritize investments in all things technology.
And could you just describe the platform that you've been on, or if you've operated one in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. So we're in the process of rolling out a new platform right now, but the current state of the platform that the majority of our customers are shopping on was initially deployed in 2009. Maybe an embarrassing thing to admit, right? Because it rolled out in 2009. There really weren't any major updates to it since 2009. And when you think about customer expectations at that time, it was really, hey, NAPA, how do we get a digital version of our catalog out the door, right? It wasn't really how we serve customer expectations today. So in the process of rolling out something new, and I think our technology stack is something that we're constantly evaluating because we know that behaviors are shifting rapidly.
And I know your title is B2B Digital, so that's but NAPA also sells to consumers, right? Is your platform really for B2B and B2C too?
So the way that we're structured is we have two separate web platforms currently. So we have NAPA Online, which is used for B2C, and then we have NAPA ProLink, which is used for B2B customers. Stay tuned, that continues in the future.
Is that all in the same instance of software?
It is
totally
not.
different.
It is totally different. So I think just by that answer, you can recognize the opportunity there.
And can you share, is this homegrown, or can you say what platforms are on?
Historically, the Pro site was a homegrown platform. Globally, all sites are moving to Hybris, at least for the time being.
So Hybris means
SAP Commerce.
Yes.
SAP, yeah, right, thank you. And just along those lines, Adam, is it the kind of companies that you've been working with on the B2B side? Can you give examples of ones how you maybe helped them upgrade, or maybe they upgraded? We talked to a lot of companies that upgraded just before the pandemic, and they were really happy because it helped them get through things. It helped them manage their disruption in different ways.
Yeah, so it comes in forms of either upgrades or even re-platforming altogether, like what they're doing at NAPA, right? So it's really just about determining if you're at that point where is your platform meeting your business and technology objectives, right? And we're seeing that with the market disruptions, with the changes that are happening rapidly, the need for companies to be more agile and nimble is like super important. It's like an imperative thing with how quickly technology is moving. So the key thing is that we are seeing people completely do re-platforming because they need to get to something that's more modern. There were kind of out of the 2000s, most platforms were very monolithic and hard to like once you implemented them, they were kind of almost steady state and hard to make changes to. Today's platforms are a lot more nimble, much more microservices oriented and can change quickly. So that's what we're seeing the trend. That's the trend right now, is moving towards things that are a lot more agile and easier to use.
So could you give us an example of maybe whether you can name them or not, or how they use their composable or flexible technology to maybe shift, starting a revenue stream or selling new products or getting into new markets?
Yeah, sure. So most of the time, how that manifests itself is that they're trying to bring something to market quickly, and they find that they can't do it because of their systems, and it becomes a repetitive problem. And so then what you end up doing is saying, okay, I can't have this anymore. I have to have a more agile way of getting things out, and they'll start incorporating new technologies to kind of sidestep their own platform and move things out. And then, which becomes problematic all in itself, because then you have band-aids and short-term solutions on top of long-term solutions, and then it just becomes snowballs into a bigger problem.
Right.
To just kind of piggyback piggyback on that too. You know, I think in the early days of the pandemic with NAPA, right, there was, like everyone had, this current urgency that we need to deploy buy online, pick up in store, right? More for the consumer business, but was a really important feature. And I think that's one of those things that the team was able to pivot quickly and get it out the door, but it also brought to light to the leadership team, like, hey, we have to be able to act quickly in this space, and we need to be able to pivot, right? So we have to build a flexible technology that allows us to do that and the right processes around it that let us do that.
So I was wondering, was NAPA already using more APIs and more of a headless maybe environment or is it, you know, because I mean, I know Iris is an old, you know, it's been around for a while, but just like all the other platforms, they're all getting more APIs, and did that help you?
It's really been the last 1 year that we've really doubled down on this journey of microservices and API-driven experiences, right? And not just for the current state e-commerce platform, but when I think about where things are going in general, and hey, we may want a metaverse experience, right? Like we may want, who knows what, like who knows where technology is going, but I think having microservices is like the flexible way to get there, right?
Right. And I know I talked with you a couple of years ago. We had this great conversation about telling me how things have evolved over the past, I don't know, 10 years, but in the last few years, it really evolved faster. And all this microservices and all that, or APIs are becoming more useful. What about now, even from a couple of years ago?
And even from a couple of years ago, it's really coming into its maturity to where the technologies are actually able to fulfill the vision of an acronym we used a long time ago. Does everybody remember SOA? Services-oriented architectures, right? So that was something that got really popular in the 2000s, but we weren't able to execute on that at the time. All of the enterprise systems were monolithic. They didn't have APIs. They didn't have any of those things. And so this was the conversation that we were having, and it's been a series of introducing APIs, introducing all of the different technologies. But today, the ability to use React and GraphQL to be very nimble, it allows you to really move fast.
Yeah. So Brooke, I was going to ask you, a lot of B2B companies, you got really specific needs of your customers, whatever it is, whatever products they need. Is there particular, I mean, in the auto business, I mean, that must get, you know, really specific things that your customers need. Maybe they're operating a fleet or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there something that you were able to use your technology to really drill down into what they needed?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of illustrate this point, when we think about the B2B customer on the NAPA site, they're usually like garages, right? So you take your car in to have it repaired, the garage needs to order the parts from somewhere, they're ordering it from NAPA. When you get in the shoes of the person who's ordering that part, they know that you have a specific car, right? They know the specific year, make, model of that car. They want to be able to enter that in, or the VIN number, whatever identifying information. Search for a part, see exactly what part fits their car. Don't want to see any other ones because that would be super confusing, right? Add it to the cart, check out, get it really quickly, right? So we have gone through this journey implementing a new site search experience to solve that very problem, right? How do we make sure that we're using all the latest technologies, AI-driven search, so on and so forth, but also solving this fitment problem? Because I think we all know that when B2B buyers are coming to the site, at least for a distributor, right? They know what they want. They want to find it quickly and easily, and get the heck out of there, right? They don't want to spend a lot of time fooling around with, is this the right part or not?
So it's all about a good customer experience, right?
Absolutely.
And that gets up, if anyone's interested here, if you have your EnvisionB2B app, you could take a poll. If you scroll into the app for this session and you scroll down, you'll see a poll, and there's like 2 very quick questions. If you want to, the first question is your B2B commerce technology providing a good customer experience, yes or no? And then there's a second question, which of these technologies is most useful? AI and machine learning, Internet of Things, or augmented reality, virtual reality? Just to try to get a sense of where people are at. And if you do that, and then you just hit see results, the results will show up pretty instantly. Meantime, I was going to ask you both if you see there lasting lessons or other lasting effects of the last couple of years that you've learned from that will help prevent the next disruption.
Yeah,
or deal with it.
absolutely. On my part, I would say that it's taught us that everything can change, right? So take absolutely nothing for granted, because everything that you think you know about your customer, whatever research you did, right, with COVID, it all changed like that. And we have to be ready to pivot. And I think when we consider that pivot, it's not just how do we pivot from a technology perspective or capabilities, but it's back to this whole idea of how do we have the right processes in place so that we have agile teams, we can get from research to design to the dev team to implementation out to the customers as quickly as possible, right?
Funny, has anyone taken that poll there? Okay.
Not everybody at once, right?
Right, well, sorry, this is the first time we're doing this poll here.
Well, while you're doing that, I think I'd like to add on to what Brooke was saying, and we were actually talking about this before the session, and kind of in agreement on kind of how to prevent disruption, or how do you deal with disruption within your company, or how do you prepare for it in the future. We work with a lot of companies that large enterprises that are actually going through some sort of disruption, and they need to react to it. And one of the big things that they end up wanting to do is a digital transformation. And we were talking about this, is that digital transformation isn't actually about technology, right? It's really, technology is a part of it. If you think that you're going to implement a new e-commerce platform, we call that digital transformation. You really haven't transformed, you just added a new capability. What really digital transformation does that helps you get through disruption is your culture. Your culture has to be able to be very nimble and accept change. Not just one change, but change on a regular basis. And how you handle those changes throughout the organization is really critical. The second thing is you have to be willing to reorganize your business around delivering in a more agile fashion, and make, if digital is not at the center of your business, it needs to at least be a part of the fabric of how you deliver to your customer at the end of the day. So and so that reorganization has to have that focus. And then I would say the third thing, I always forget the third thing, but it's really, still hasn't come back to me here. But it's not about just having your e-commerce group being agile. It actually has to be your entire organization. So if your e-commerce team can make changes really fast, but your ERP system is on a waterfall method, and you have to wait 2 years before you can get changes to your e-commerce system, that's not going to work. The whole organization has to be ready for agile. Now, okay, what does that really mean? That means that everybody needs to have a backlog. All of the systems across your organization, not just your e-commerce system, needs to be working on a backlog that can be reprioritized at any time based on business priorities. So that is how you make yourself adaptable to disruption and change. It's not so much about the technology. There are technologies that enable it, like microservices and such. That is the what, but the how is way more important sometimes than the actual technology itself. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think as we think about our journey at NAPA, right, we've really moved to this domain-driven structure. So, there's together and creating in the same way, because as an e-commerce team, I'm only as good as the data that I'm getting from everywhere else, right?
So some people did take this poll, I guess, and the first question was actually, has the pandemic led you to develop new e-commerce revenue streams through new products or markets? 80% yes, 20% no.
So there were 5 people that answered, 4 said yes, and 1 said no.
Then is a new or upgraded digital commerce platform essential to how well you manage the next market disruption? 60% yes, 40% no. So, what about, did NAPA, did you make any other shifts in, there must have been, I mean, the automotive market went through quite a bit of changes, a lot of more used cars being sold, and I don't know if that
Which is great for us.
B2B sales.
Well, it's awesome for us.
Yeah, but is that more of a B2C play, or is it?
No, it's really both, and it definitely depends on the assortment, right? So when you think about auto accessories, that's definitely something that complements new car sales. Most people are buying accessories for their car when they first get it. But the longer cars are on the road, right, the more repairs they need. So that's great for us from a B2B perspective. The garages are getting that business. I think more than anything, the pandemic just kind of underlined the importance for being really good at core commerce, right? So making sure that our product data is correct and complete. All of this stuff that I think we all already know, but we just weren't executing on it, and it wasn't getting the level of visibility that it needed, right? If you don't have good product data, you're not going to have good search. Certainly, the fitment's not going to be right. It hurts everything, right? Making sure that path to purchase is quick and easy and painless. That's how we win. And we need to make sure that we're doing a good job. And we did do some work on this, really focusing on what's available in stock or when it is available, right? Because we've had supply chain challenges just like everyone else has. And for our customers, they're scheduling work around when they're getting the part, right? So making sure that they know availability or when they're going to receive something, ultra important. Making sure that we built other features like online statements and invoices, online delivery tracking. They were things that we had kind of dabbled in, but they weren't implemented universally across all NAPA stores and to all NAPA customers in a consistent way. All of that became much more important.
Did you have to upgrade some of your product information management or your data warehouses, or that really important to have more end-to-end data management there that's accurate and up to date?
Yeah, I think more than with the system change, it wasn't really that from a product perspective. It was more of a process change and how do we get the data and make sure that it's correct and complete and going out to all channels consistently. And then for some of the other tools, it was kind of back to the underlying infrastructure and how those teams operate, right? Making sure that we had an invoice service to show people invoices. It's all part of the journey that we had to go through.
Right. Are there any questions here? The last few minutes here. So what else are you doing to other lessons you perhaps learned? Well, actually, we have another question here.
Yes, I'd love to know, obviously, technology, when we think of functionality and everything you do for the business, how important that is for disruption. How important is it, when you're actually looking at the future from resources and expertise and technologies as you're making these microservices decisions? So you're not on a platform that all of a sudden you don't have resources or a pool to actually support the investments you made 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I did not hear the first part of your question, so we need the context.
Yeah, so obviously, a quick way. A lot of technology that you're looking at and functionality and the scale of it, how important is the people side of that? So as you find resources in the market to support these technologies long term, are you thinking of that as well as you look at that?
Yeah, we already got tactics. So the people side is super important. So I talked about needing to reorganize around digital, but it's also fulfilling those roles. A lot of times you have to establish new roles within your organization to be able to handle things. So for instance, we implement marketplaces, and there's a whole slew of new roles that get introduced. You have a new customer, which is your online sellers, for instance, those folks need care and feeding and onboarding. So depending on how you're changing, you have to be agile enough to be able to hire in the right team members. You also need the right leadership. And you could probably speak to this, Brooke, just like your internal organization. I talked about, how your culture and your org and everything has to be aligned. But even more importantly, it's leadership that it has to come from the top and has to have that support in order for it to cascade throughout the organization. If you don't have that, you won't get the ERP guys on board with a new method for delivery, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think similarly, really attracting and retaining the right talent, right? You can't expect to keep the same team that you've always had as you're moving forward. Like, you're going to have to add to it. You're going to have to teach those people. You're going to have to supplement. You can't just continue down the same path. Some things have to shift. And I think we found that to be really important, is to make sure that we have strategically brought in people who understand different pieces of these domains. It's really what I'm trying to do with e-commerce.
Okay, well, thanks. Any other quick questions?
Yeah, Eric's got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll
Eric.
ask one. So we talk about technology for disruption, right? But technology itself